Hello, friends. This is Miss Kennedy here to read another chapter of The Cricket in Times Square by George Selden. We're on chapter 11, The Jinx. A jinx is a type of word that people use when they think something brings them bad luck. Okay? So be thinking about what you think or who you think might be a jinx in our story. From the drain pipe, the animals watched Paul put out the fire. He dragged what papers he could find out of the newsstand and got a bucket of water to douse the rest. And he watered down the walls to make sure that they wouldn't flare up later. When the danger was over, he called up Papa Bellini on the telephone. What a mess, said Tucker Mouse, looking at the soggy, smoldering piles of paper and magazines. No one knew what to say. What are you going to do, Chester? Said Harry Cat finally. I'm going to go back there, said Chester. If the Bellinis find me gone, they'll think that I set the fire and ran. What makes you think they won't think that you set the fire and stayed? Said Tucker. I'll have to take that chance, said Chester. Before the cat or the mouse could say anything to stop him, he hopped over to the newsstand. Paul had told the engineer that he would miss a few trips on the shuttle and was waiting for the Bellinis. He didn't want anyone monkeying with the cash register while the cover was off. The conductor thought that the cups and the bags from the animals' party had been left by Mario or Papa, and while he was taking them over to the trash barrel, Chester jumped up on the shelf. Nothing there had been burned, but there was a smoky smell to everything. The cricket took a downhearted leap into the cage and settled himself in for whatever might come. It did not take the Bellinis long to arrive. They had taken a taxi, and when the Bellinis took a taxi, you could be sure it was an emergency. Chester could hear them hurrying down the steps from the street. Papa was trying to soothe Mamma, who was wheezing heavily from asthma and excitement. When she saw the heaps of scorched magazines and newspapers, she began to moan and shake her head. Papa eased her down onto the stool, but it was still covered with water, and she stood up again with a wet spot on her skirt. Oh, ruined, we're ruined, she sobbed. Everything is burned. Papa comforted her as best he could by saying that it was only a few stacks of lady home journals that had been lost, but wouldn't believe that anything less than complete destruction had come to them all. Mario, who brought up the rear of this sad parade, thought first of the safety of his cricket. He saw that Chester was in his cage, though, and decided it would be best to keep quiet until Mamma's outburst of grief had subsided and gone away. Paul told them what had happened and how he had smelled smoke and heard the alarm clock ringing, and then he came to the part about the animals who had escaped from the burning newsstand. So, said Mamma Bellini. All her despair changed into anger. Animals in the newsstand again, didn't I tell you? She lifted up her forefinger at Mario. Didn't I say the cricketer would ask his pals? He probably set the fire. He's a fire bug. Mario didn't have a chance to speak. He would open his mouth to defend Chester, but before he could say anything, his words were drowned in Mamma's flood of reproaches. She had found someone to whom she could blame all of her unhappiness, and there was no stopping her. When a pause came, Mario said meekly, You know, my cricket would never do anything like burn up our newsstand. Ah, the fact remains, said Mamma. He had a fire. We had a fire. But crickets are good luck, said Mario. Ha! Good luck, said Mamma indignantly. He eats money. He commits arson. He's a jinx. That's what he is. He's good luck gone backwards. He's got to go. She folded her arms across her chest. It was an attitude that Mario knew meant the absolute end of everything. I could keep him somewhere else, the boy offered. No, said Mamma, shaking her head as firmly as the door being closed. He's a jinx, and he goes. Papa put his finger up to his lips to signal Mario that he shouldn't say anything more, and the two of them began to clean up. They carted away all the hopelessly burned magazines and tried to salvage some of that had only been scorched. Mario mopped up the floor of the newsstand while Mama spread out the papers to dry. By the time they finished, it was almost the hour of the first wave of commuters. Chester was lying on the floor of his cricket cage. He felt guilty because even if he hadn't said it, in a way the fire was his fault. If he hadn't invited everyone into the newsstand, it would not have happened. And it was his playing of the rumba that had made Tucker want to dance and so tip over the matches. And he did eat the $2 bill. He began to believe that he really was a jinx. During the early morning rush, Mario was especially eager in his shouts of, "Paper, mister? Time or life, mister?" Papa was more active than usual, too, but Mama sat glumly on the stool with a gray, determined look on her face. Despite the fact that the selling that morning went very well, she would not change her mind. After the rush was over, Papa went out to buy a new lock. Chester heard a soft scratching from behind the Kleenex box, and a familiar face peeked out. "What's going on?" whispered Tucker Mouse. "Are you crazy?" said Chester under his breath. "All they need is to catch you here." "I had to find out how you're doing," said Tucker. "They're going to throw me out," sighed Chester. "Oh, Tucker moaned. "And it was me that did it. Supposing I give you the rest of my life savings, maybe we could buy 'em off." Chester leaned his little black head up against the bars of the cricket cage. "Not this time," he said. "Mama's got her mind made up. I don't blame her either. I wish I'd never come to New York." "Oh, Chester," wailed Tucker Mouse, "don't say that. You'll make me feel like a rat, and I'm only a mouse." "It's not your fault, Tucker," said Chester, "but I've been nothing but bad luck to them since I came." Without knowing what he was doing, the cricket began to chirp to ease his feelings. He found that it helped somehow if you sang your sadness. He wasn't paying much attention, and just by accident he played the first few notes of an Italian folk song he had heard the night before. It was so sweet and yet so soothing that it fit his mood exactly. Mamma Bellini was untying the bundle of Herald Tribunes when she heard the chirping, and at first she didn't know what it was. She was talking in Italian and saying, "What's that?" Chester stopped playing, and Mamma said, "Who was singing?" Mario looked at his mother. Usually, when she spoke Italian, it meant that she was in a good mood, but that couldn't be true today. Now, Tucker Mouse was a very good judge of character, both of animal and human. He thought he heard a kind of softness in Mamma's voice. "Play some more, play some more," he whispered to Chester. "She hates me," said Chester. "I'll only make her angry." "Do as I tell you," commanded the mouse urgently. So Chester started to chirp again. He was in such disgrace anyway. What difference would it make? The piece he was playing was called "Come Back to Sorrento," and by the greatest of good luck it happened to be Mamma Bellini's favorite song. Back in Naples, Italy, when Papa was courting her before they came to America, he used to come beneath her window on a moonlit night and sing this ballad to the plunking of an old guitar. As the cricket chirped, the whole scene came back to Mamma. The still, warm night, the moon shining down on the velvety bay of Naples, and Papa singing to her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she thought of those bygone times, and very softly she began to murmur the words to the song. Chester Cricket had never played with so much skill before. When he heard Mamma singing, he slowed his tempo so she could keep up without straining. When she was loud, he was too, and then softer when she got choked up with emotion and her voice dwindled. But always his chirping carried her along, keeping her on the right beat and the right tune. He was the perfect accompanist. Mario was dumbfounded. He stared astonished at the cricket cage and then at his mother. It was just as marvelous for his mother to be singing as it was for a cricket to chirp familiar songs. Sometimes, when she was very happy, Mamma Bellini whistled, and once or twice Mario had heard her hum, but now Here she was crying and warbling like an Italian nightingale. Chester finished. Come back to Sorrento. Keep it up, squeaked Tucker Mouse. She's a sucker for these sad songs. Before Mamma's mood had a chance to wear off, Chester began chirping the selections from the opera that he had played during the party. Mamma didn't know the words to the opera, but she hummed some of the tune along with him. Mario was still as a stone. Papa Bellini came back from the locksmith. Coming down the stairs, he was surprised not to hear his wife or Mario calling out the papers. But when he got near the newsstand, he was even more surprised to hear the strains of the Grand March from Aida coming from the cricket cage. He chirps opera? Exclaimed Papa. His eyes looked as big and startled as two hard boiled eggs. Shh, Mamma said with a wave of her hand. Chester's memory of the music was perfect. He had to hear a piece only one time to remember it forever. When he had finished all the operatic numbers, he stopped. Should I go on with the pop tunes? He said as he whispered to Tucker Mouse, who was still hidden behind the Kleenex box. Wait a while, said Tucker. See what happens. Mamma Bellini had a dreamy look in her eyes. She put her arm around her son and said, Mario, no cricketer who sings Come Back to Sorrento so beautifully could possibly start a fire. He can stay a while longer. Mario threw his arms around his mother's neck. You hear? You hear? Squeaked Tucker Mouse. You can stay. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is only the beginning. I'll be your manager, okay? Okay, said Chester. And so began the most remarkable week in Chester Cricket's, or any cricket's, life. That's the end of the chapter with kind of a surprising twist. We have one picture, and it just shows Mama singing along to Chester's music. There we go. What good fortune that he knew the song that was her favorite. So, do you think Chester is kind of a jinx? Bad luck gone backwards? Or do you think he's going to be something other than a jinx for the family? Well, until next time, I'll see you later. Bye for now.